We've broke the clapper.
Yes, I've noticed that the clapper's very subdued today. So this is Wednesday we're filming this.
It is. Yeah, so God knows what will happen by Sunday.
We'd just better tell people it's Wednesday, or shall we just cheat?
Do they care? Hello.
Cue the titles.
Can we talk about the Chris Kaba thing?
Hmm?
The Chris Kaba.
Yeah, if you wish.
What's your views?
My views? I think it's sad. I think it's sad that he lost his life in such a way. I think it's, I do feel for his family. And now it's revealed that he is a gangster and he was living the life of being a gangster and is involved in shooting. Well, there's an old saying, you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. I remember years ago fishing down in Alton Kirby, and wasps were coming along being pests, and I'd capture a wasp like this in my hand and I'd take it down and hold my hand under the water and let the water in, I'd drown the wasp. I do that all the time. And I got stung by one once. I didn't fucking do it again. So what's happened to this guy, he's been living that life of holding the wasp under the water, and now he's just got stung and he's lost his life. Not only has he had his life taken, his family's life will be pretty shit at the moment. And the officer who was tasked with doing his job, I don't know the ins and outs of why he fired or whatever, I've not seen the case, but the jury only took 3 hours to find this guy was just doing his job.
He should never have been charged, Jim.
Well, I don't know the answer.
He should never have been charged.
Well, everyone's accountable. If you have even when the SAS went into that building, you know, in Princess Gate, the Iranian embassy, they had to take their guns everywhere. They took their guns and give it to the police. They all went into bags and they all got interviewed.
But he has been held accountable. The IOPC will always investigate. If an armed officer shoots, they will be investigated. That's absolutely fine. They had access to all of the information about his previous, right? So
Who did?
Well, the IOPC and the CPS knew about his...
Did the copper on the ground knew
The copper on the ground knew that this car was involved in a shooting the night before. That's why it was pursued. Right. So as far as that officer was aware, there could be a firearm in this car. Now, they asked him 12 times to stop. 12 times. He refused. He continued ramming the car at them. I heard...
How do you ram a car at someone?
Well, he kept driving...
Once will do it, wouldn't it?
He kept driving into the car, so they'd sort of half blocked him in. Yeah, but they stood there. They've told him to stop. They've told him to get out of the vehicle. He continues doing it. I watched an interview with a former armed police officer, which was quite interesting, really, because what was portrayed, what was put out was this was an unarmed black man in a car, shot dead by a white police officer. That was the narrative that was put out for 2 years. That's what Diane
Abbott
and Jeremy Corbyn and Sadiq Khan. And this was he was an aspiring architect who was looking forward to becoming a father, totally unarmed. This police officer quite rightly said, hang on, it doesn't need to be a gun to mean you're armed. If you're behind the wheel of a 2.5-ton car, ramming that at police officers, you are armed, because that in itself is a lethal weapon. This police officer, as they all are, we are highly trained to make split-second decisions, right? None of us can sit there and say, you didn't fear for your life, because we weren't there. That he's highly trained to do that job. We put these men and women on the streets to protect us. We give them a firearm. 4 instances of people who are on our streets who are dangerous criminals who threaten life. That was his decision at that moment. Yeah. And I genuinely believe he's been sort of sacrificed on the altar of community relations. Yeah. This bloke's life is ruined.
Yeah.
Right? 2 years of hell he was put through. And as you said...
It's not his real name, is it?
Yeah, his identity was out there. He's got a £10,000 target on his head now. That bloke's life's never going to be the same. He's in hiding. he was doing his job. He was doing his duty. And I think when we, like I say, when we throw officers like that to the wolves, we're treading a very dangerous
If he'd have
ground.
been found guilty, do you think the rest of the armed police would have handed their guns back?
I think they did at the time anyway.
Yeah,
when he
they
was
did,
charged, dozens of them handed in their firearms because they said, hang on, what? You're just gonna throw me under the bus here. But what was interesting, sorry Jim, what was interesting, so obviously the police officer was found not guilty within 3 hours. Now the jury didn't have access to this information about his criminal past. All they had was that night, this video footage.
And that's how it should be.
Which is fine, right?
Yeah.
So the jury acquitted him on the basis of the events of that night, yeah? It's obviously subsequently come out he was a career criminal, he was involved in 2 shootings in the week leading up to it, he'd beaten up his girlfriend who was pregnant, he was one of the most feared gangsters in London.
He looked quite a nice guy.
Well, it was a nice photo they've chosen. But what's been really interesting is the response to the acquittal from people like Sadiq Khan and Diane Abbott, and they are devastated. You can tell they're devastated that their narrative has fallen apart because what they really wanted was a sort of UK George Floyd moment, right? They really wanted this to be UK's George Floyd. And their narrative has crumbled, and you can see they're gutted, and that just says a lot to me because it's going. You really want these racial tensions. You are creating these racial tensions. This isn't to do with a white man and a black man. This is to do with a violent criminal and a police officer going, I'm scared for my life.
They're creating it.
You've created this race.
They're doing the non-Indigenous Australian story.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the response they will get.
And they stir it up, right? And like I say, this has got nothing to do with race. This has got to do with a criminal and a police officer doing his job.
Well, yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, who thinks that Vicky Nash should become an MP?
I think I should become Prime Minister.
And why has he said that? Because this political correctness has been rammed down his throat and turned him into what someone would call a bigot.
It's quite right. And I think this is what happens. This is what happens. Because people get...
a backlash.
There is a backlash.
When a wave hits a wall, the wave will bounce back. And
this is why the Southport riots, they happened because people had reached a boiling point, right? 3 little girls got murdered. We were sort of gaslit as public because they've still withheld this information about the perpetrator. Then people fill the void with information which may or may not be true. This anger builds up. People are saying, hang on, I have seen people coming into this country, I'm not happy with this. It turned out that wasn't actually the case, but you understood what people were angry and going, hang on, it should not be normal that in our country 3 little girls go to a dance class and get murdered. We need to know more information. That's why the riots happened. And then you've seen, though, one of the blokes who took part in the riots, but actually the footage shows him, he'd gone along with a placard saying the police are corrupt, this country's corrupt. He gobbed off a little bit to the police, that's as far as it went. He got jailed for 2 years and now he's killed himself in prison. Now,
not right.
To me, he's a political prisoner, right? I'm not saying it was wise what he did, but a slap on the wrist would have been enough, I think. When you've got, the other day we had another early release of prisoners. I think it was another 1,100
prisoners. They let out people with placards and things.
Well, they haven't. What they have let out, though, is someone who's a violent criminal who was done for kidnap of a 16-year-old boy. You've got these hardened criminals now out on the streets going, big up Keir Starmer, posing in front of their Rolls Royces. And we're a laughingstock. And at the same time, you've got a woman in there who's a mother, right? A mother of a 12-year-old, never done anything wrong in her life. She put out an ill-informed tweet. She's in there for 2 years and wasn't granted bail before she was sentenced. In fact, just before we started filming, do you remember there was a Labour councillor during these sort of counter protests who called for people to slash the throats of the far right, right? His name's Ricky Jones. So he's been charged with violent disorder, right? He's been given bail.
What?
He's been given bail. So he's pleaded not guilty. His trial's in January.
Yeah.
He's been granted bail, very quietly granted bail. Now, Peter Lynch, who's the man who's sadly killed himself, Lucy Connolly, who's the mother who put out a tweet, didn't get bail. Yet this man, whose political persuasions are to the left rather than to the right, has got bail. Now tell me there's not two-tier policing and justice.
Well, of course, the other thing is he might have just got a better lawyer than the other ones.
If the sentencing guidelines are still surely the same, right? And we discussed this before.
It's not a sentence, though, whether bail or not. Bail
yes,
is
but
separate.
the guidelines are still the same.
Yeah, well, if there's a flight risk.
Yeah, she wasn't a flight risk, and nor was she a danger to society.
No, she wasn't.
So how can that be the case for her and that be the case for him? It's not right.
I don't know.
It's not right.
No, but you know, most of the judges lean to the left anyway, don't they?
I feel like they've been put under pressure from the government.
Who was head of the Crown Prosecution Service?
What now?
Who was?
Oh, Keir Starmer.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, and I think, but once again, people are sick of seeing this. You know, at the end of the day, people just want a level playing field. I think if we had that, people would say, fair enough. You know, if we're gonna treat everybody the same, and everyone who's convicted or charged is treated the same, I think people would say, all right, okay. But when you see it play out like that, and they've clearly been given these instructions, if you are on the right and you know, protested in this way, straight to court, straight to prison, you know, don't pass go, don't collect £200. But if you're on the left, so, you know, you can have bail. It's not fair.
It's not fair at all. I think the judicial system needs a bit of a shake-up, doesn't it, really?
I think it needs totally overhauling, Jim.
Well, no, I'm not suggesting anything. How was Miles?
Oh, he was lovely. He's got such a lovely laugh.
Do you know what people never saw on YouTube? They never saw the introduction that you got from America. So for you watching on YouTube a little tiny bit of this show, here's what the future president, fingers crossed, sent to Vicky Nash.
I hear my good friend Jim Davidson is on vacation, and today's show is presented by Vicky Nash and Miles Crawford. Miles is such a nice guy. He's too nice, and I hope Vicky lets him get a word in. I have never seen a woman with so much to say. She's worse than my opponent in the election. I want to thank you Stream subscribers for supporting me. You can join Ustream by going to ustream.com. Sign up now and help Jim Davidson save the world. Okay, that's all I have time for today. I must go and rehearse for the election. Good luck to Vicky and Miles on the show.
It'd be interesting to see what happens in Scotland. Did you see my this week when I've just read out the 24 different genders that the Scottish people recognise?
You couldn't make it up, could you?
No.
I've got the list here.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Pick one.
Well, we are cisgender, aren't we?
What's that mean?
Denoting or relating to a person whose gender identity corresponds,
Cisgender?
yeah,
What does
with
that
the
mean?
sex
You fuck
registered.
your sister?
No. We relate to the sex we were registered for at birth. Whatever. Trans man, trans woman, non-binary. That's just made up. That's just made up. Trans, not otherwise specified. What the bloody hell does that mean?
Can I stop you? Who started all this? The Americans, isn't it? American females.
Why would it be American females?
Because females are mental.
I would suggest very much the opposite.
Why?
Because didn't all this bonkers, batshit bonkers stuff come in when men started saying, I'd like to be a woman now because I'd like to be in your changing rooms and I would like to
I want to be a woman because I don't want to
swimming.
go to work no more. I don't want to have all your money.
I want to win at
mad.
swimming even though I was crap at swimming as a man. Agender, a person who does not identify as having a gender. Gender fluid.
How do you have a wee?
What does it even mean, man?
What does gender mean? What is the literal meaning?
Well, to me, there's two genders and the rest is personality. Right?
Male or female?
Yes.
You're a man or a woman or you're mentally fucking ill?
I'm going with that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Then.
Neutral.
Hello, Ofcom. How are you?
Wait a minute. Autigender, right?
Yeah.
An autistic person who thinks about and relates to their gender label or lack of gender label in the context of autism. So it's just someone who's autistic. I don't. What's that got to do with gender?
Why do you have to be any of them things? Why
it's just narcissism.
Why do you need to be pigeonholed? Why do you need to be put in a box? Why do you have to have a T-shirt? I'm dopey gender.
Dopey gender?
Yeah, it means I'm a dwarf. I could be happy gender. Or
I don't think you'd be happy gender, but it's just narcissism. Just it's absolutely bonkers. And for a government to indulge this, have they got nothing better to spend our money on?
No, nothing.
Really? Because last time I looked, the world was going to shit. So I'm pretty sure pangender, a gender that is not limited to one gender. What?
What's that mean?
Christ knows. Demigender, someone who only partially identifies as a girl. What does that mean? How can you only partially identify as a girl?
Partially?
Just partially.
Maybe if you're a man and it's a very cold day and you look down and you think, look me, I'm almost a girl.
So sometimes you're demigender, yeah?
Yeah, most times.
The world has gone
What about
mad.
these people that can identify as cats and goats and wolves?
Well, that must be on there, Addy.
No.
Questioning's one. A person who is in the process of figuring out how to describe and label their gender identity.
Look down if you've got...